Hi everyone and welcome to the Radiant Lawcast. My name is Sena, your favorite host. I'm your only host. I think it's the dictatorship. Anyways, joining me for the very first time on the Lawcast, my colleagues. We've got Jarryd, Pillay, and Sián Smit. How you guys doing?
We're
Good.
very well. It's casual Monday in Cape Town.
Casual Monday in Cape Town. You're alive and kicking?
Oh yeah, man.
Funny story.
It's my day off.
Jarrod's meant to be on leave, but we dragged him here because, yeah.
I'm claiming this day back for sure.
And God, I don't make those decisions. Guys, welcome to the Lawcast. I'm super excited to have you both here. Obviously, you guys know the topic of today is traditional and non-traditional parts in law.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've all gone through like different waves. I did the whole 4-year law degree, 2 years articles, and then into working as, as a lawyer. Right. So that's like the path that I think most people take.
Yeah.
But we all come from different circles. We all come from different spheres and we all take in different approaches. And then I just want to have you guys today just to chat through that, the advantages, the disadvantages, the exciting things you've come across, the more boring things you've come across. That's using my language very nicely. And I'll start with you, Jarryd. Just take us through your journey so far. Before Radiant and at Radiant.
Sure. How far back do you want me to go? I was born in Port Elizabeth. No, I'm joking. So I studied law at varsity because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. It's probably a common thread for most lawyers.
Yeah, most of us is because we're bad at maths.
Exactly. And I decided, no, this was going to be my career. And when I was a kid, I was like, I'm going to be a divorce lawyer. I'm going to make a lot of money.
Dark.
I know. Dark twist. But I found that I was a good student and I found the content engaging. But then when you get out of law school, the practice of law is totally different to what you expect.
Really?
Yeah. That was my experience. I joined a boutique insolvency firm based in Claremont, and we were doing sort of insolvency applications, evictions, general litigation, and sort of commercial stuff.
Yeah.
I took more to the non-reserve work because court is just not for me. And I was enjoying my job. I qualified as an attorney in 2017. And then I worked as an associate for that year. And then at the end of the year, I was sort of still really enjoying it. But I came across a Black Friday deal for a TEFL course.
Okay.
And I thought, look, I've always wanted to live overseas. And I kind of bought the deal, studied, and then I resigned that following March.
Hectic. For those who don't know what a TEFL course is, just explain it to them quickly.
Sure. It's teaching English as a foreign language.
Language, yeah.
I knew of a few people who had done this sort of between their degree and their job. And I always felt that if I didn't do it then, I was never going to do it and I would have regretted that. So
So this is your first year as an associate. It's looking like the career in law is going the way you think it's going to go.
Exactly.
It's the traditional path. It's the standard way. And then all of a sudden you come across that deal on Black Friday and actually I'm cool.
So my girlfriend and I resigned and we went over to Vietnam and we taught English there for about 2 years. And traveled all around Southeast Asia after saving some cash.
I don't know how my conversation would go with my girlfriend if I said, hey, listen, babe, I'm quitting as an associate at this law firm and I'm going to go teach English in Vietnam. Like, I must have been, I can't imagine myself doing it.
Yeah, I'm lucky. My partner was completely down for that. And
cool.
We sort of packed up, moved to Hanoi. And for the first 6 months, I worked as a contract consultant. So my previous employer kept sending me contracts to do in the morning. And because of the time difference, I was able to do them and send them back before they stepped into office.
Because you were way ahead.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed doing that, sort of working at different coffee shops and traveling at the same time. And then I started teaching English, taught for about a year. And there's a few kids in Vietnam at the moment who have thick South African accents, talking about prize and vlees and stuff. So that's going to be interesting.
You've done your bit,
exactly.
Country duty.
I was giving back, And then just before the end of 2019, I decided, look, let's come back. Let's get the career path back on track. And I rejoined my old firm. worked for a year, but as everybody knows, COVID was quite difficult.
Yeah.
Especially to be a traditional lawyer. And then, I was lucky enough to come across the radiant opportunity, and I jumped at the chance.
Well, man, and it's been amazing having you as part of the team.
I've loved it.
It's been great. It's been great. So, Sián, your legal journey so far. Do you want to chat to us about it? Sort of what you've come across.
Sure.
I've coming from.
Seen some things, Sena, but basically I followed a very similar path to yourself. I did my 4-year LLB, but not before I took a gap year to try and flesh out what it was that I'd be doing. Basically, the conversation was, hey, Dad, I'm going to do a BA in drama and music and history. And he was like, try again. So we tried some different stuff. I did some psychology. I did some business stuff. I did law. I was like, cool, law's cool. Let's go with that. And fast forward 4 years, I articled with a relatively big law firm here in Cape Town. They've got branches all over. It gave me some opportunities to move around for work as well, just, flying here and there. Almost died on OR Tambo one day with literally like a case full of court pleadings for constitutional court. I kind of fell backwards off the elevator going up to the Gautrain. But more on that later.
I didn't expect this part of the story.
Twist made a mystery.
So for anyone thinking that law isn't a career, with occupational difficulties, yeah, absolutely, that's just not true. And then I guess, I qualified in 2018, and then I was retained as an associate, and I stayed on across a couple of departments. So I was primarily engaged in commercial litigation. I did tax work, customs, a lot of shipping law. So it was a good path to take at that time.
Besides the death scare.
Oh yeah, there were a couple. I mean, we had a candidate too, and he got into a client's taxi, and there was a shotgun in the foothold. Like, things just happen in legal practice. You'd never know, but yeah.
And then obviously I feel like, kind of the journey that you go through, predetermines the kind of lawyer you become to be today. I'll start with you, Jarryd. How do you feel like maybe going to Vietnam and teaching English and having all those different experiences carved the way you work on a day-to-day basis?
I think I would probably say it was the most impactful experience of my life.
Okay.
Because what that 2-year period did for me is gave me perspective on what's important, on what's possible, and on how the rest of the world lives.
Yeah.
I feel like before I went over, I had a very narrow view of what my life was going to be like and what my career was going to be like. And I would get overly stressed about sort of small issues. But once I went over there and I saw a whole range of things, and travel changes you.
Yeah.
When I came back, and now I'm working sort of on huge deals for huge international clients, I don't get bogged down in the detail because I feel I can look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And in a boardroom across from another lawyer, I am able to remove myself from the immediate discussion and see how the whole picture fits together. And I think that comes through in the advice I give.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant, because I think a lot of the time, maybe as lawyers, we become so vexed in what we want to portray. I want to come across as perfect, dress perfectly, and speak in a particular way, so that I can earn the respect of the other person across the room.
Yeah.
Sián, do you share the same sentiments in a way?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. When you are, a young associate, you want that life. You want to make partner. You want to, have a jewel with the big clients. You want to sit at the table, and that fosters some really unhealthy.
You want to be
things.
That person.
Yeah, of course you want to be that person. I mean, Jarryd and I recently had an interesting exchange actually at the office. And one of the really big law partners came out of the building next door to our office, and I mean, within, what was it, like 2 minutes, he was like, oh, I make this per hour. And then, and we were kind of like, wow.
No one else.
No, literally no one. But also this is exactly where, I got in my car and I was like, that was my trajectory until I joined radio.
You're going to be that person. Like, I was going to know how much I make an hour?
Yeah. Like, I mean, who cares, right?
But we very often slate the traditional part. Not slated, but we present ourselves as alternative, different thinking, try the non-traditionals. It comes across as maybe we're edgy. But what I wanted to say is, are there anything from the traditional practice that you think, maybe that actually benefited me in a particular way? And by traditional, I mean you're at a traditional law firm, the whole formal structure of practicing law, the timesheets, the formal correspondence with clients and other attorneys. Do you feel like there's some advantages to that? Now, I look back and I say, well, it could do well in fostering some sort of discipline. Like I felt like that when I was working in that kind of environment, that I feel more disciplined, I'm more time conscious, my communication is very on point. I communicate in a very particular way, which is what a lot of people look up to. Do you feel like those are things that you can take away and say, no, that was very good for me?
I think so. I mean, they're two very different things, right?
Yeah.
On the one hand, you have traditional practice, which basically you want to be different to everyone else because that's just what makes you valuable to the firm. And your entire career and your survival as such, as an associate all the way up to partner, is premised on just, how much better you can do something than someone else. And that drive, I think, informs something later on, that even when you're taken out of that fish tank, out of that environment, you still have that, that's something in the back of your head saying, I can improve this, I can make this better, I can figure out a better way to do this. So definitely taking that through is beneficial. There's a lot that I would say isn't beneficial whatsoever. Pilot bags and legal pad would be right up there. But I do think that at least I call it a traditional upbringing in law does make a difference in lawyers.
And I think it's important. I think the most important part is knowing what to take away and knowing what it is that you can leave behind and what to keep. Because I think a lot of our colleagues, respectfully, are still stuck in a cycle of doing things which may not be totally beneficial now. Jarryd, would you feel the same way? Do you think that there's certain things that you took away from formal practice and said, no, that's helped me and become a better lawyer?
Yeah, absolutely. I think particularly the core skills like drafting, communication, the way you conduct yourself, because you can kind of see it in in-house lawyers who did practice versus those who went straight from law school and articles into a job. You can kind of see it in the not the quality of their work, but the way that they present their work and down to the granular details. I also think that there's something about traditional practice that everyone should go through, because when you leave it, you have all the stories that bond you.
It's a rite of passage.
It's a rite of passage, right? It's the trauma that brings the profession together and holds it together.
And also informs, everything that's wrong with traditional legal practice.
Hectic. So I actually haven't gone through this personally because I was very fortunate to do articles at firms that didn't have much court practice, much court day-to-day going on. So then I always listen to some of the guys in the office like, so I used to carry files and I'd be walking in heels in town by the court, and I'm like, that doesn't look comfortable. Sometimes I walk past, there's a Green Market Square or Short Market Square here in Cape Town. Those, like the tiling on the floor, is not conducive for women walking in heels, but there's always so many running up and down, going to and from the court, and I'm always like,
no, we had a running joke actually, like you can pretty much tell I don't want to say the age of the attorney, but the level of experience judging by the shoes, because they start about yay high. They're just a candidate attorney about a year in, you're only going to see Woolworths pumps, and if they're hungry at the front and like the seams kind of separating from the sole, like that's when you know that you're dealing with someone who's seasoned in practice.
So do you think you would have perpetuated sort of that requirement had you then gone on, say, partner name partner, wherever.
I don't think it's perpetuated by anyone. I think we have this idea, we watch Suits, we're like, Harvey is fine. Like we really want to, be Donna and whatever, Megan or Rachel, I don't even know what her name is anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, so when I was second year, I did VAC work, right? And I came to the office and I was wearing heels because I was like, cool, it's like we're all professional, we're going to wear heels. I literally had blood blisters. I'll spare you the details, but I popped them in my car before I could drive home. I mean, like literally no one who actually did. I mean, the partners were wearing heels, and the people who'd worked there for like 2 hours, they were wearing heels. But like, we get so absorbed with like the idea of what we want out of a legal career that it's actually so far removed from what happens, and we think of these like flashy titles and we think of flashy work, but really that's one in a million. I mean,
I think just building on what Sián said, the expectation is that when you reach the position of partner, you would do things differently. But I see it just so interestingly coming through in every lawyer that reaches a sort of senior status. They get frustrated because their principal spoke down to them and made them pour the tea and pick up the dry cleaning and stuff like that. But then when they reach that level, they seem to have the same frustrations with juniors. They seem to do the same behavior.
But that's where we break the cycle, right? I mean, I never picked up dry cleaning or anything like that. Thank God. My hourly rate was too high. I mean, the partner wouldn't have been able to bill it to something. So, right? But I mean, I see that in my approach to the people who are like, new to the firm or whatever. I mean, we're dictated by our experiences. And if we can improve on the experiences that we had, then who's losing?
Ultimately, it's all about breaking that little cycle, breaking that little chain. One of the things that comes up a lot in the news is lawyer career dissatisfaction and lawyers having mental health issues, apparently all stemming from a career that's high stressed, high seriousness. There's so much expectations. You have to present yourself in a particular way. You have to, be and deliver to clients perfect letters, perfect emails, no typos, nothing, which is important, super important. But apparently lawyer career dissatisfaction is one of the big reasons a lot of people move in-house. A lot of people move to different, outsourcing agencies and they don't stay in law, or they move to music, construction. They go and they do other things just, no, I don't want to practice anymore. I see that a lot. It's interesting to see young people in particular make that decision very early on after 1 or 2 years in practice. They're like, actually, let me jump that ship. I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that. Do you feel like there's a huge sort of career dissatisfaction at a very young age for young associates, young attorneys, candidate attorneys?
Absolutely.
That forces them to make that change.
That goes back to what we just discussed. We've got these partners who, they went through the trenches, whether they needed to or not. They got to this point and now they're perpetuating the cycle. But those partners haven't stepped back and said, we were part of a cycle that we should have broken back then. I think there's a lot more noise around, in a good way, mental health and realizing that there are issues in the career. That didn't happen 10 years ago. I mean, we have bodies now looking after people. We've got people advocating for the rights of trainee legal practitioners, for people who are in practice already, and there's support groups and things. It's great to criticize and to see what went wrong when in the past, but having said that, we also need to think about what support was there was and what there
probably
now.
Wasn't much now. There probably wasn't as much noise back then as there is now.
Absolutely. And I think people just are able to draw a line in the sand much quicker now. I mean, there are many legal commentators now who started out as high level attorneys or solicitors or barristers and realized somewhere, I don't want to call it a midlife crisis, but in the age of 35, 40, 45, they were like, actually, this sucks and I want out now. And I think that speaks to just self-realization. I think we are, just because of what's available to us now, able to self-realize much quicker.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it goes a little bit further than that in that it's on a personal level as well. So I think most people have an image of what a lawyer does and what life is like as a lawyer, probably informed by American TV. And when they experience the reality, they feel that what they worked so hard towards, the rewards actually aren't worth the input. And I think that's quite sad because it should probably be weeded out a little bit earlier. There's so many different paths now that you can take with a law degree. And to only see traditional legal practice as the one avenue is probably part of the problem. I think that as more people become aware of the alternatives, they'll start earlier and will retain good talent.
And what I wanted to say, what do you think it is that these alternative routes are getting right, which traditional legal law firms are probably still not grasping in the same way?
The biggest thing I would say is fixed price.
Yep.
Fixed price.
It's
Cutting out the
incentive.
noise and using your time better.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you pay for the fountain in the lobby when you can charge the client a certain rate and challenge yourself as the provider to become more efficient and to find new creative, non-traditional ways of doing things rather than intentionally taking longer and making sure you hit those fee targets?
Yeah, it's incentivizing bad working practices by essentially paying for time, because then, you know, however much of my time you want, you can have it.
Exactly.
Whereas if you're paying for, you know, a fixed fee, it incentivizes me to find better ways to do this, to listen to you properly the first time and to get it right.
Yes.
I mean,
actually, something I noticed is also training, because you aren't incentivized to spend a lot of time training as a traditional lawyer. Because obviously everything is so high pressure and you want to hit those fee targets, you're selling time, so it's precious. Something I actually noticed earlier this week, you had spent a lot of time QAing somebody's work. For those who don't know, QAing is what we call quality assurance. It's a senior checking a junior's work. You had spent, I think it was over an hour. It was just
hour and a half.
It was just the two of us sitting in office, and I was listening, and I know you were on that call for an hour and a half, taking the person through the document and sort of talking them through why they'd made certain decisions and that kind of thing. And it just struck me as that is why I prefer to work in an alternative provider, because you took the time to teach that person the right way. Whereas I don't think that happens as much in a traditional law firm, because time's precious.
You'd leave your junior to do the work, and then you'd bill for checking work. Perusing
and considering.
I love that word, perusing.
Perusing is always, I've always found it, because I didn't know what perusing actually meant until I started having to prepare a timesheet. So it was only like when I was 23, 24 that I actually realized what perusing meant.
Email, perusing response.
But obviously, just to head towards the end, I mean, with alternative legal service providers like Radiant and you know, different other forms, we're starting to see the use of tech come into things a bit more. We're starting to see, you know, different approaches towards solving legal problems. Why do you think the future holds for the future lawyer? The one thing that I remember a conversation I once had with our CEO, Alex, was what do you think it looks like a few years from now? You know, we're seeing tech come into it. Does that mean we're less relevant? What do you guys think, in light of what we've spoken about today, think the future holds for the young lawyer? You know, is it, yes, traditional practice is going to change? Are you going to see more people trying different things as soon as they leave university? What do you guys think the future holds?
There's horses for courses, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have courts forever, because unfortunately AI is still some way off from making an equitable decision on things. There's you know, humanity required in that sort of sphere of practice. So there is a place for traditional practice. M&A would be difficult to run through, you know, legal software. there's many different things where humans will still need to run the process. But going back to, time saving, and that's not just time saving for clients and time saving for companies, it's time saving for us. Why should we put in work and take time away from our families and from our lives and from ourselves, which is also so important, when we can just, use something like Legal Sifter, check that, a required provision isn't a contract, and save ourselves some heartache, and also, have a second set of eyes that isn't another human being just checking over our stuff. Why run up costs couriering things around the world when you can use DocuSign to execute? I think the future holds a lot of opportunity for people to make life easier for themselves. Even in traditional practice, you don't need to set up a boardroom to have a document signed. And yet people still do it. So, because we're perusing that document.
Perusing, consider, we sit around a table like, okay, so you're going to sign in my presence and all of these things.
And travel costs. So, I think people will need to focus a little bit more on the alternatives though, because coming out of university at the moment, fresh, that's really, the first time I heard about DocuSign, I was like, are you sure? This doesn't seem right.
Like, are you saying it can, I just send an email and then someone can like sign it?
Even service by email was like, when I started out, it was kind of like, you needed to make sure that you had firm consent to serve a document via email, or it wasn't legitimate service under the court rules. So I think people need to also kind of keep an open mind. Like Jarryd takes me out over this all the time. I'm quite a traditionalist. I think there's a place for us somewhere in the cracks of ALS, but I still like to keep hand over things, but there's a lot that you can deflect to technology, and people need to learn how to embrace that. And when they do, they'll realize like the returns keep coming.
Cool. Jarryd?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a consequence of the fixed price model. You have to figure out quicker and more efficient, more accurate ways of doing things. And just having that challenge there is what drives the innovation and drives automation. There will always be a place for lawyers, of course, because services are a human endeavor. But I do think that the faster and faster we get, the more time we'll have for ourselves, and the more satisfaction clients will get, because they're paying for FaceTime with us. We are the product. It's not the document.
But that's so true. Essentially a contract is a relationship, right? So why are we fighting over paper? Like and that's the thing. It
does sound very silly.
It is kind of silly. And when lawyers take I want to say, trying to one up on another out of it, then that's when things start to move really quickly. And ultimately, it's about relationships. Computers can't have those, so that's where our place is.
Because I'd argue that a lot of the rules as they are right now, the legal profession rules, are geared a lot towards keeping us relevant, keeping us.
It's a fraternity.
There, it's like
protectionist.
The one that I always found as a surprise was the correspondence fees. When you're in practice, if I refer clients to you, you got to pay me like a third, and then you got to take the other 2/3, and it's like, okay, do people actually do that like on a day-to-day, like in all walks of life and all walks of business?
It's crazy.
Not necessarily. It's different ways of working, different ways of doing things. So I've always felt the rules are geared to keep us, or to protect the profession, but to protect its members more than anything, right? Yeah. If I say you need a lawyer to do this, then a lawyer is going to be necessary.
Exactly.
It keeps me relevant.
Of course.
So that's where I felt maybe when you look at these alternative legal service providers, it might just seem like you're kicking off, making lawyers not the cool people we have a reputation of being.
No, we're definitely going to lose standing, but I think at risk of I think it's for the greater good, because think of something like an anti-nuptial contract, right? Those fees are they're regulated, so you have to charge. If Sena, you come to me and you say, Sián, I need an anti-nuptial contract. it's time, Sena. Then I'm going to have to say, you know, buddy, I love you, but I'm going to have to charge you a couple of grand. And you're like, no, I don't have a couple of grand right now. I just bought a ring, you know, then cool, let's go without it. Why do we need a lawyer to do that? You could standardize that. You could standardize it on the Department of Home Affairs. Man, you just need to get that ring on that chick's finger and I'll leave you alone.
She called you out on the
she
podcast.
did. On the Lawcast. On the Lawcast. Sounds very funny. Guys. You can catch the Lawcast on YouTube. This particular episode will be there. You can find out more about what Radiant Law is all about. You can check out these two amazing people's profiles on the website. My name is Sena. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me. Cool. I hope you'll make time to come again in the future because this was great.
Yeah, thanks, Sena. What a pleasure.
All right, cheers, guys. Later, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.